see. Thank you for having me first. And yeah, let's talk a bit about actionable reporting today. So hi everyone, I'm Mark. I work at Zebra BI, and we are actually a company based in Ljubljana, Slovenia, that is specializing in actionable reporting and data visualization for Power BI and Excel. And the agenda for today is actually to quickly have an introduction to IBCS, or short for International Business Communication Standards, and then go into some elements of actionable reporting, and then show you some hands-on Power BI examples, of course, get our hands dirty, and then in that particular part, feel free to just jump in if you have any questions. You don't have to wait for the end, but of course we'll have a dedicated Q&A session, and as Jeff said, we'll have some dedicated time for the Zebra BI cards, which is the latest addition to the Zebra BI toolkit at the end. So actionable reporting and let's first try to understand the concept. And nowadays we collect and store a lot of business data, right? And then as we do so, we encounter the challenge of presenting it, understanding it, and making the right decisions faster, right? And for actionable reporting, there are three main pillars to that. So the first pillar is driving smarter decisions, and you will be able to take them by focusing on meaningful insights, not just to see what happened, why it happened, when, and what next, but also where, why, when, and what are we going to do next, right? The next thing would be clarity, and by including the IBCS standards, you will achieve clarity and consistency across the whole organization. Sounds like a simple thing to do, but in reality, it is quite hard. And the last pillar of actionable reporting would be ease of use, and it refers more to the technical side, as creating reports in a simple and better way, and well, as for the business side, by driving and improving the so-called data culture, by minimizing the DAX skills required for creation of the reports. So let's talk about information design and the inspiration behind the IBCS standard, right? And the main idea here is consistent data representation. And we can find such good practices of this in many areas of data visualization, such as maps, because of course we have standardized where north, east, and west and south lie. You can of course read the maps efficiently and quickly because the notation of the roads and different elements of the maps stays the same. Maps are pretty much readable from a glance. Also, the use of colors for, let's say, water bodies should remain consistent. The next good example, of course, is the traffic signs, which are pretty much universal in terms of shapes, colors, and the meanings behind those patterns. A really good example of pattern recognition actually is music sheets, because if you look closely at the notation in here, you can understand that just because everything has been, the entire visual language has been standardized, musicians today can of course play Mozart, Bach, and can play modern pop music and the Beatles and so on, because everything has been nicely presented with the standards. But what about in business, right? There's no consistency and no clarity and no agreed upon patterns, because if you just Google sales dashboard or financial dashboard, KPI dashboard even, you'll get all sorts of different visual representations, different logic behind how to structure different elements and so on. So it is really hard to understand the data, and this is something that we should try to mend. And for this, the IBCS standards come into place. So the IBCS standards tackle a lot of different topics on how to visualize the data, but most importantly, these are the top 10. So how to represent messages, how to represent titles, time structure, time periods, which charts to use in what situations, and then of course how to label efficiently so that you don't get lost in the too many labels, or you don't get enough of the information with the labels. And a really important thing is to keep the data that means the same. It also needs to look the same. So actual data should always look the same. Plan data should always look the same. Forecast data should have a recognizable pattern. Previous year data or so on. And in performance reporting, of course, you want to be able to highlight the variances, because there is where the action is actually happening. Before last, the scaling is actually one of the, let's say, most tricky parts of data visualizations, I would say, and even advanced report creators somehow usually don't get this right. So it is really important that we scale everything that we see on the dashboard correctly, so that we don't get a skewed view of the performance. And of course, lastly, you want to highlight the important changes and so on. If we take a quick look at this report example, it is an example of a sales dashboard done in Power BI, right? It does not live up to the standards of actionable reporting. And why is this so? If we analyze it quickly, we can see, yes, we do have our time frames specified. We have some slicers at the top for filtering our data. We see our sales, profit and quantity numbers. And then we have our breakdowns, right? By state, by, let's say, different geographical maps, subcategories, and so on. But any such dashboard worth its part should answer simple questions, such as, my sales performance good or bad? How good or how bad is it? Why is it so? And what are we going to do about it? And if we try to tackle those questions from such a dashboard, we'll quickly see that we come into some obstacles. Because yes, we see that we have some sales, we are not losing money, we are profitable, but is our sales performance really good? We cannot answer such a question if we do not have a comparison to our targets, because let's say our profit target for this particular period was 300,000 of, let's say, dollars, and this is not visualized in any of the charts here. Then if we cannot even answer the first question, of course, we cannot answer the question how good or how bad. Then try to understanding the sales numbers. We would say that these complementary breakdowns should give us some clue about those numbers, right? But does a donut chart such as this or a tree map really answer more meaningful questions than just let's say, approximate comparison of the visual or percentage volume of the sales? It takes a lot of the space of the dashboard, right? Then the next thing would be the use of colors, right? If we're trying to show the message, we should really refrain from using the colors for visual appeal. The colors should be used for focusing the attention of the viewer and telling a story. And in this particular case, you would probably get your attention would get attracted to the yellow color here in the tables and here, or the red color. But do these colors have any meaning behind it? Because if we take a look at the donut chart at the top, the California sales is marked as green. Here the office machines is marked as green. Here the entire sales is marked as green. Here is used, the green color is used for furniture. So there's no real meaning behind this green color, and it's up to the reader to then try to understand, is there a meaning or is there not, and so on. And again, using a visualization such as a tree map here for almost 1/5 of the entire dashboard could be really better utilized with another visual than a combination of let's say line charts and And structure in the x-axis is something that we should really try to avoid, because line charts are usually, of course, associated with time trends and so on. This is much better to organize your structure in a in a vertical plane for that particular case. So if we take a look at a comparison report with a similar set of data, and what I mean by applying the actionable reporting standards. And immediately you'll see that this is much more clean, because we're using the neutral colors for all the actual data, but then the variances are highlighted, and it is a simple color coding. It has red for bad, green for good. Of course, this can be switched, but it has to be standardized so that it's immediately apparent what is going on. And if we try to apply those same four simple questions that a sales dashboard should answer, we can quickly see that it is really apparent just from a quick glance that we can answer the first question. So is my sales performance good or bad? We can see that we are in the red, so in comparison to our plan here, and we know exactly how good or how bad it is, 1.1 million below the plan. And because we are using that consistent color representation, you can of course understand that from just a quick glance, there's from this trend from January to August, there is more red than green. So we are probably underperforming on a larger time frame here. Then the next, for comparing the variances, the advanced waterfall chart here on the left is a really good visualization type, because it keeps the focus on the variances where the action is actually happening. Then understanding the breakdown, further understanding the breakdown of why the performance is bad, you can quickly see that we have this breakdown by chain and category sorted by volume, so it is easily visually compared here. And you can see the outliers immediately, because they are scaled across the visual, right? So it's immediately apparent that the majority for that underperformance is actually happening in the women's category. And of course, this might not be enough information to just, okay, plan the action then, but you could add, of course, a report page tooltip to add a further breakdown, or create a drill through page, and then get the entire context of what is going on with the women's category, and then of course plan the action. So that is the basic idea of how to structure the reports. Next example here would be a really good representation of how scaling can quickly improve your ability to read the data. So here we have the small multiples in place. So we have different categories here, all set on the same scale, so you can visually quickly compare the different categories, because the bars here, the bar height is actually set on the same scale. And in this way, you can quickly understand, okay, so the top level of the categories is actually impacting the business more, even though the relative changes might be, of course, smaller. And just from a quick glance, you can understand, okay, the top 5 categories again are underperforming from January to July in comparison to plan, but the home category is actually the only one that is above the plan, and the women's category again is the one giving us a lot of trouble, so we should look into it. Just a quick two more examples of let's say how to use the elements of actionable reporting to better understand the data. So here we have again a sales dashboard. We have those big KPIs and just the number, but trying to understand, let's say, gauges or speedometers, where is actually the key information here? It is in this small area of the visual. So our variance to the target. So this entire visual takes a lot of space to just show this small amount of information. Again, donut charts have been put up with a lot of let's say bad practices in the past. We pretty much can agree on the donut charts. not being the best representation of, let's say, comparisons, especially, I mean, 2 elements is the max you should probably use with them, but even so, it is really much easier to compare, let's say, 2 columns or bars in terms of size than, let's say, the donut elements. Again, seeing the sales and the sales plans here, the most important part actually to visualize would be the variance here. Showing the let's say different categories in a spaghetti chart like this can give you headaches just from trying to understand what elements correspond to which line here, and of course the legend isn't even complete. So this is something that should really try to avoid. The tree map again only shows us the volumes, and apart from that, it's usually used just to filter the rest of the data, and this is something that can be much better visualized in terms of action. So this is the same set of data, but just showing and explaining the data much better. Again, we see the variance comparisons here, and the breakdowns sorted by volume, and you can quickly see that the importance of your attention is, of course, in where it's needed. So in the variances, and the categories can be visually compared with the small multiples. This next section can be interactive, and so feel free to raise a hand or unmute yourself and ask questions. But in any case, I hope we should have some spare time for the questions for the end. So if we now go over the key elements of actionable reporting one by one and see how you can use Zebra BI to bring them to life. So the first 2 elements would be the advanced charts, such as the waterfall charts, the segmented charts, and the variance analysis. And if we now jump into Power BI, we can quickly recreate those with Zebra BI. So let's go into Power BI and see how we can use them. So currently we have 3 visuals. So the Zebra BI charts, the Zebra BI tables, and the Zebra BI cards, which is the most recent one. But if we start with a structural breakdown for the tables, you can just bring it into, let me quickly turn off the interactions here, quickly bring it into the canvas, and you'll see that Zebra BI uses this really simple pattern of having, let's say, your dimensions, and then broken down by your predefined measures, so actuals and your targets, of course. And in this particular case, we just bring in the actuals into the tables, and they get automatically sorted. They have this integrated visualization type of the variance, so you can better compare those volumes, right? But you will recognize this pattern with Zebra BI, that you have those placeholder buckets. So for the previous year, for plan and forecast, which you can use to quickly recognize the data that you're displaying. So if you just add in a previous year measure into the placeholder bucket, you'll get this column that is actually using the previous year notation, and then you have automatic variances calculated on the fly. And same happens if you add even more, let's say, additional columns, and here you get the comparison to plan, and again the automatic variances are there for you. And as you can see, the visual is responsive, so if you give it more space, it will bring in more data, and so on. Now you have several different options to customize those, and just include maybe some more visualizations. So if you want to show this as a chart type, all the columns, you can just go into the column settings and quickly turn on those charts to compare them. And the nice thing here is that because the notation is applied automatically, it applies also to the automatic variances, right? So if you want to, let's say, now compare the plan to previous year, or if you have even a forecast in, so let's just drop the previous year into the forecast placeholder bucket, you'll see that the notation automatically applies. And now if you want to switch, let's say, the automatic calculation from instead of comparing the actuals to our plan, you can compare your forecast to plan, and you can just simply go into the settings here and choose between all the possible variations of the calculation. So for example, if I had even okay, let's just switch it up like this. So if you had multiple such calculations, you will get all the possible variations in here. So you could just simply switch between them on the fly. So if you maybe want to compare the forecast to plan, let's just bring some of the visualizations here into the numbers view. You'll see that the notation applies also to the variances. One thing to keep in mind here is that you do not need to display all those columns if they're not needed. So for example, if you want to just focus on the comparison to plan, this can be just quickly brought to the forefront. You can then maybe change the let's say chart type of the previous year comparisons, maybe also switch this back to the numbers, and now you can focus on the comparison to plan. You can quickly sort those columns as well just by clicking on them, or if you don't have any arrow applied to any of the columns, you can just go into the default Power BI settings and just try to sort them with your custom sort logic. In any case, right, if you don't wish to show those columns, the other columns as well, you might as well hide them. So in this particular view, you will say, okay, I don't even care about so much about the previous year comparison. I can just simply hide those columns from the visualization. And if I need them later on, I can bring them back through this menu at the top. You can also show, let's say, all three comparison columns, so the actuals, previous year, and plan, in one, let's say, overlapped bar chart type. So in this particular view, you can see that the actuals are here at the forefront, and then the plan is in the back, and you can see the markers for the previous year. But if this particular view is not something that is needed, and you want to combine this with another one, you can, of course, just quickly switch between this one, the highly, let's say, visualized one, and a simple table view. Or you can say, now I want to, in this, I want to be able to switch between the previous year or comparison and the plan comparison, and I would create, let's say, a view that maybe focuses on the previous year comparison, and you would just remove everything else, like this, add in the chart type for the previous year. And now maybe I have even enough space to add in some group hierarchies here. So you could just quickly add in quarters and months to the group placeholder. And you have a really detailed cross table now in this particular case. You can add a hierarchy on the rows as well, just collapse, expand if you need to. See the top levels, or if you just want to focus, let's say, on the last quarter here, you can just expand the last one, bring in maybe the grand totals as well, and just add order to stand out. So
Mark, it's a little bit like watching a conjurer at work. You know, follow the magic. One of the points is that you do so much, but you're not actually even straying into the settings. You know, that's that's the beauty of it. It's like,
yeah, it's simple, right? Yeah. Once you get the hang of it, it's just a matter of clicking a few times, and you have everything that you need for your data to be presented in a correct way. You don't have to even focus on the formatting. Everything is done for you, right?
Yeah.
So and what this also really helps is with maintenance, right? If you have multiple different designers and then creators of reports, it can be a headache to just keep everyone on track so that the data is represented in a understandable way for the users, right? And in this way, it's just there, right, for you. And so yeah, you can have those detailed reports as we see, or you can just keep that, let's say, top level view. And then maybe instead of the comparison to across different time frames. You can maybe add let's say a period calculation into the group, so you can have your monthly data and year-to-date data side by side, right? Maybe in this particular case, again, the variances are more important, so we can keep the actual data like this and structure the outliers like this, and then we can quickly just have the monthly, quarterly data and so on structured with year-to-date data, and have it like the time intelligence done on the row on the group level of those columns. But you might say, okay, I want even a better representation of, let's say, time frames. So for this, you would usually use the charts, right? And for this, you can just simply use, but not in the same visual. Let's just add in the charts here. And basically the structuring or creation of the charts is the same, right? So you choose your category. In this particular case, we can use the months, and then you create, add in your actual sales data, and voila, the chart pops up. This is pretty standard, right? But Zebra BI will automatically try to choose the correct chart that is appropriate for that data. So if we add again those comparison measures that you can see here, you'll see that it jumps into a waterfall chart for this particular view. If we add more comparison measures, you'll get those comparisons at the top as well. And now this is the beauty of it. So the visuals are responsive, but you can also use different layouts in both the tables and the charts. And you can, of course, use the chart slider for different chart types here, area charts, line charts, charts galore, you would say. But you can, within those charts, you can use certain layouts. So instead of this responsive design, so if I make this column chart smaller, it will jump into an integrated variance. But I can also enforce, let's say, just showing the variances themselves. So I can say I want to just see the variances, absolute, relative, just the absolute variances. I want to see just the actual numbers and so on. So you can quickly adjust the charts to what you need at that particular moment. And now, of course, you can use the charts to cross-filter your data, and because the visuals are certified, you can use them basically the same as any other native visuals. One thing to keep in mind here is, of course, you would then try to remove the interaction of the trend chart to keep this in line, but maybe use those slicers for timeframes. So you can now have a slicer filtering your structure here, but not affecting the trend chart. Right? This is usually standard practice, just in case. Okay, so let's move on to the next, let's say, elements of actionable reporting, and this would be the small multiples. And as we just created the chart, we can start from this, let's say, part. And with the small multiples, you can create really full page and full scale pages with trends, right? You can just use the group placeholder in the charts to create the small multiples, and it's as easy as just drag and dropping the fields into the group placeholder. And now you have created essentially multiple charts for each individual business group, and these are all scaled. And as you can see, the bottom ones don't really generate much volume, and this is something that we can then quickly remove, but still include in the total calculation. And how you can do this is just by going into the small multiples and adding a top plus n feature. So if you go into the settings of the small multiples, you can turn on the top plus n functionality, and you can control it by percentage. So you keep the top 80%, let's say, or 90% of the elements, but all the rest should go into this others column, right? And in this way, or you can just specify the number of elements. So let's say I want to keep the top 5 elements and all the rest should go into this others. You can then give it a highlight to just visually distinguish it from the rest of it. And now you can use those different chart types here as well. So you can combine this, and in this particular case, you might, when you try to analyze those variances, you might want to break the y-axis, but in other cases, of course, you want to keep the consistent scaling. And then you can, of course, click on the group titles to analyze them one by one, but for just a quick overview and what is going on and comparing the data, the small multiples is really a powerful visualization option. Of course, you want to streamline your storytelling. So some of the, let's say, you don't want some of the charts to be shown for your end users, and you can simply control this with hiding certain charts here by let's say clicking on this button at the top of the visual, and let's say we really want to have this view for our end users. But from the small multiples, you have this other option, so you can switch into a stacked chart. Right, the stack chart usually are troublesome because of the legends, right? But if you have the top plus others functionality, you can control the number of elements, and it is better visually compared. You can of course switch the labels here as well. There's a lot of the interaction controls here. You can just click on them and try them out. But the problem with stack charts in general is that only the bottom element is actually lined up. So when comparing the sizes, it's visually it is maybe better to go with the small multiples, just as a general guideline. Okay, so moving on to the next element would be group tables with variances. We've already seen how we can do this with the grouping, but a really key feature here is that you can combine what you show in different groups. So for example, if we jump into this next example, let me just bring it up. It gets, as we were talking about some troubles, right, of the Power BI. Okay, so what you see here is that exact case. So in this particular case, we have an executive summary dashboard, and you can also see the cards here on the left. So we'll talk about this a bit later, but the cards can be used as just a simple KPI display, and then you can just cross-filter your data by just clicking on it, right? And this really helps you see, let's say, your different KPIs with a nice representation, and then combined with those charts. And this is another element of actionable reporting that we'll be talking about, and it is called a segmented chart. So if you have your data for, let's say, January to September, you have your actual data present, but from then on, you maybe don't have the data yet, but you have your forecast, right? And the visual will automatically determine, okay, so there's no actual data, and it will just automatically switch to the forecast to plan comparison instead, right? And this is how you can show your full year data in a really nice way and still see, okay, up to this part we're doing fine, but what about till the rest of the year? And yeah, you can have this ease of mind then. But I was talking about the different groups and how you can combine different scenarios in those. And because you can hide columns from individual groups, right? You have this ability to just populate the visual with, let's say, the plan, forecast, and actual data. And then for, let's say, the monthly and year-to-date data, you would use the comparison to plan. But of course, because we still are missing some of the data for the full year, we would then focus maybe in the full year for the forecast comparison. And this can easily be done with those visuals. Now, we talked about the top and bottom end functionality, but we haven't touched the tooltips yet. So let's see how we can combine the two and bring them to life and then add even more actionable elements to our reports. So if we go again into this first scenario, we can start with a landing page here. And usually what we have, you have your top level breakdowns and overviews. But then if you want to add, of course, additional context, you would add your report page tooltips, right? And you can just simply go into any of the visuals and just go into the settings of the tooltip and choose the report page and then, of course, your tooltip. But the tooltips really should be limited to the amount of data they are showing, so they don't present just a full page tooltip, right? And in this particular case, we have a breakdown in the comparison to plan by different countries, but we are using the top N plus others functionality. And let's see how you can quickly just do this on the tables. So with let's say a list of all the countries, it would be too much to display, right? And you can just simply go right click on the table, let's say categories here, and just add a top plus bottom N. And you can choose any of the columns displayed. So in this particular case, even the automatic variance comparisons can be used. And in this particular case, we want to see just the top and bottom outliers. So we'll choose this selection and keep the 6 items here. And voila, we have a nice condensed tooltip with all the information that is needed. But one thing to keep in mind. So with tooltips and trying to present different KPIs, it can be somewhat troublesome when you want to combine, let's say, negative and positive KPIs. So in this particular case, we're filtering the revenues, but if you switch and filter the costs on the page, you'll see that the charts has already had this implemented, and because you can invert a particular group in the charts. So without this, the increasing cost would be represented as a good thing, but we can quickly mend this by just inverting that particular group. And the same logic can be applied for the tooltip. So now, right now, the tooltip is not displaying correctly because, as you can see, a decreasing cost is displayed as a bad thing. But if we go into the tooltip, let's just organize it and just simply add in a KPI into the group placeholder and then invert that particular group. Let's just sort it as well, like this. We can go back to the landing page, select this new tooltip that we used in the tooltip. So this inverted tooltip. Now, if I filter the revenues, I'll get the correct representation. If I filter the costs, the tooltip also applies. So this is a quick trick, and one of my favorites actually to quickly add that additional information for the KPIs that should be subtracted. And the same has been done here for the actual KPI, right? You can just simply invert the row to represent it correctly. Of course, you can then add in a detailed drill through page, right? Just by adding a button here or right clicking on this, and then this would of course go into this next, let's say, idea of how to structure your reports in a circular navigation pattern. So you always start with the landing page and drill through into more details and maybe try to understand the report, what is going on here. Of course, once you see the data here, maybe see the different versions of it, you understand it, you go back to the navigation page, then you can of course use the buttons and just use transparent buttons for the navigation. So maybe if you want to add in, let's say, a circular navigation here, you just simply use that button, and here the user can go and click for this group, go into more details, KPI comparisons, trends, and once he understands the whole picture, he of course goes back to the landing page, right? And this is a really best example of design on how the reports can use this navigation to draw the users into the whole story.
Wait a minute. So that was a button with a hover over effect, and you hover over, and then the button says, "Hey, there's something." That's really cool. I've never seen that before.
Yeah,
that's great.
And another cool feature for the buttons, you can use them to onboard your users. So just using the buttons with the bookmarks can be used as a help overlay. So you can have this at the top, just click on it, and then you can also embed GIF images into your buttons and charts as well. So this is also a trick, because if you ever tried implementing a GIF image into the image of Power BI, you've probably seen that it does not animate. But if you place it into a button, or into a chart. So as the plot area, it will animate perfectly fine, and you can use this for onboarding your users, to give a quick explanation of how the dashboard actually operates. And this might be really helpful for people who are trying to transition from let's say Excel to Power BI and with this all interaction approach.
Wow.
Yeah. So we've tackled some of the, let's say, use cases for let's say sales reporting and so on, but ZBA actually handles financial reporting really well. So this next two elements would be financial reporting with adding formulas, and the commenting feature, which a lot of our clients are actually very excited about. So let's jump and see how we can use those in the financial statements. So what you see here is actually the same table visual that just has a waterfall chart applied to the actuals column. And we have a comparison to plan, and then we have our breakdown by accounts, right? But this visual doesn't seem right at all, because we still don't have the costs inverted, and we can simply just use the same logic as before, just invert the entire hierarchy. Now the waterfall jumps into place, the variances jump into place. You can mark this gross margin that is somehow floating here and tell it, okay, this is actually the result of the COGS and revenues. So just mark it as such by right-clicking on the row, and now the waterfall jumps into place. So in this particular view, you can really see the developments of what is going on across the P&L statement, right? But the P&L statement usually doesn't include, let's say, percentage measures as well. So as you can see, we've added those here on the row levels, and you can just right click on, let's say, the gross margin, and underneath it, you can go into the add formula, write in your gross margin as percent, divided by revenues, mark it as percent, maybe give it a blue outline to visually distinguish it. And according to IBCS, percentage measure should be italic, so just mark it as italic. And now you just added a new element on the row level. So it's as simple as that. Just combining those elements. It is not in the model, it's only on the visual level, and you can then maybe go into the edit mode again, and you have this nice button of manage formula. So if you have, let's say, multiple formulas and you haven't color coded them, you can just go in here, delete some of them or format them if you need so, and just go back and you have this P&L statement, right? And the second element was the comments, right? So usually the users try to let's say export those reports and then write in the comments in PowerPoint and whatsoever. But with ZBA, you can simply just add in the comments directly on the visual. So you have the comments placeholder buckets in all three visuals, and you simply have an Excel table that is connected to, let's say, a date ID, or in this particular case, your account structure, and then you can add those comments manually in Excel or with Power Apps with a write back functionality, and just add it on the visual itself. And you will get small comment markers that you can just hover over like that and get the comment below it. But you can also add in your comment box. So you just turn it on and you get the comments and the titles of the comments generated from the actual data, right? And this is all dynamic. So if I switch now to a different time frame, I'll get different comments. If I switch to, let's say, a balance sheet account structure, I get the comments for the balance sheet, right? And this way you can implement a dynamic commentary directly in your Power BI reports. We also have a dedicated webinar on how to structure your Power Apps, so you can have a step-by-step tutorial on how to have the Power Apps for updating and deleting your comments in let's say, your SharePoint or Excel table that you have somewhere. Okay. So yes, this would be for those two, let's say, last elements for financial reporting. But you can also use, you don't have to use the defined, let's say, color formatting. You can, of course, apply your corporate design and just with the use of themes, because every setting of the visuals is actually saved in a JSON theme. So you can just simply go, let's say, in export that JSON theme and just bring it into Power BI. For example, if you want to rename all your comments across, let's say, columns across the entire report, or you want to apply the different color scheme for the good and bad and so on, you can just simply go into the Power BI themes. Here, I'll just, and it's a simple JSON file. If we just quickly take a look, it just has all the settings stored in, and you can just simply rename them here and control practically all the settings of the visual. So if we now apply that theme to Power BI, you can bring it in directly, or you can, of course, set your, let's say, design in the design settings. Here you have the custom options or some of the predefined, let's say, colorblind friendly options as well, and so on. So this is maybe the last part of this, and in this this now gives us I'd say 15 minutes or more for showing the cards, because this is one of the most exciting features that has been added to this let's say actionable reporting toolkit. And for this, we've seen the cards in this consolidated visual, so you can use, this is one single visual, so you can use it as a simple filter, but you can also use the cards as a complete monster of a scorecard. So usually the KPIs are displayed with just one particular number, and then you have multiple such cards placed on the report, and it all has to render one by one, and it takes a lot of performance resources, but it also does not show you the data in, let's say, an actionable way. And what we have here is that one particular Zebra BI card, but if you add your comparison data, you will get those measures directly on the card, right? And it's still pretty basic, but the true power here is once you consolidate your KPIs and structure them as a dimension, and we have all the let's say step-by-step tutorials on how to do this, but we'll also have a dedicated webinar on 3rd March that will cover this topic in detail. So once you have this, you simply just drop your KPIs into the group placeholder, and you create individual KPIs for every individual KPI. You'll get a card, right? And
wait a minute, undo that and do that again. I've got to see that again.
Okay, so
I didn't believe it.
You just have that simple visual, and you add your KPIs or accounts or what you want into the visual, and you now have separate cards that are rearrangeable. You can just drag and drop them, and they will align. And you can go even further to that. So right now we're just comparing the values, but if you want to add trends as well, simply drag and drop them into the category, and you have KPIs with trends integrated, which are dynamic. So if I give it less space, it will jump into this particular view, and so on. You can then switch between the variances just by clicking on them. If you have cumulative, let's say, KPIs, you can just click on that particular label, and it will show the balance or the last particular view. But yes, this is okay. Now you're displaying all your KPIs, right? But maybe you want to, of course, add a drill through here, and yes, it's just incorporated into the cards. So you can again use a button that would appear once you click on the card, or you can just use this last icon on each individual card, and you can have a drill through page from that KPI, right? So it's all in this particular, let's say, design structure, from starting with the top level view. Then if you have, let's say, costs, you can simply just go into the focus mode of the card, invert that KPI, maybe even format it if you need currency symbols or axis breaks and so on. You can just format it, and now you have this KPI inverted, right? It's as simple as that. If you need to scale cards, so you can go into, let's say, you have two particular cards that need to be visually compared. You can simply use the second icon and assign scale groups. So without the scaling applied, these two, of course, scale to the max. But now if I say, OK, scale them between each other, they are now compared. And you can add infinite groups of scaling. So if you have, let's say, one row that needs to be scaled between each other, you can, of course, scale them correctly as well, which is really important.
Assigns color goes in, so you can see which ones are scaled in each group.
Yes, yes, and this was still the first iteration of the cards. Right now, we've just certified the cards, but we're waiting for them to get available on App Stores, and once they are available on App Stores, you have this full feature of the cards available across the entire Power Platform stack. So you can use this in any way you like. And the good thing with the cards is that actually all the features are unlocked for free. Okay, so you can try the cards for free. The only limitation is that with the free version, you have just the 5 elements. It's a limit to up to 5 elements. All the others will have a, let's say, watermark that will say it's locked. But if you keep it up to 5, you can just go nuts with it.
Fernando asks about the structure of the KPI measure that you're using there. Can you maybe, I don't know, go into the grid view and show us what we're looking at, or what's the best way to show?
Okay, so what we have here is, the KPIs are, let's say, consolidated here, and then you have just the IDs. And there are 3 ways of how you can actually do this. You can have a separate, let's say, Excel table and just structure those KPIs as would be here. Or if you have, let's say, multiple facts that need to be structured, you can append them just one below the other, right? But it has to be a particular structure or the naming of the columns. And let's say the third option would be to organize it with DAX, but we'll go into more detail in the webinar. Surely, if you need, you can of course also go to our knowledge base that explains the 3 options in detail. So yes, we provide all the materials. So you don't get stuck in the dark with using this. But yes, this is basically it. So you can, of course, choose the different chart types as well here. The chart visual is integrated into the cards, so you can really go nuts with it. You can have, let's say, bullet charts. You can even bookmark all the different states. With the certified version, even the layouts, if you get bookmarked. So if you maybe create a certain layout that you wish, you can just bookmark it, and then you have, let's say, a bookmark for showing the charts or keeping it simple, right, for starters, and then just showing the trends and so on. So you can also add the comments as you see here, and once you go into the focus mode, you can see the comments.
So that bookmark means you can set up a particular pattern for somebody like me. I might want that big one at the top left, and so you can set up a bookmark. Wow. Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
It's like an intra visual bookmark. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yes. Also, if you prefer, you can change, of course, the icons here. And one thing that you might have noticed is that the icons are actually scaled to the let's say, volume of the change, right? So again, if the scale groups are assigned, it will of course scale as well. But just visually, you can distinguish between a small change or a big change in each individual KPI. You can, of course, change the flat styles, but you can jump between 2 different, again, options. So here you have a custom layout, but you can jump into this, let's say, Power BI goals reminiscent view of rows, and then the spark lines. And again, you can just rearrange the items if you need so, change the labels here and so on. So you can have this view or the custom layout view. And combine the 2 or so on. But as I said, listen, it does not have to be the multiple KPIs, right? But it's much better performant, and then you can of course cross filter. But you can just simply populate the cards with your basic measures and then have single cards as well. This works perfectly fine with single KPI displays. but yes, you can go nuts with this. So
can you put space in there? Like, for instance, if you wanted to have a space where that adoption score was, can you? I don't know. I guess you could put a blank KPI there. Like you might want.
Yeah, you can control. You can control it with compact cards. So there's this setting. So you can turn this off, and then you can rearrange the cards to let's say be floating, but in this particular case, and you can assign the gap between cards, so maybe just add more gap and so on, like this. There are several options on how to assign this, let's say, in any particular way that you want, for instance.
Yeah. So in other words, why would you have separate cards on a page if you could put them all in one? And space them out however you want.
Exactly. The best possible way is just to have all your KPIs in one view, and this improves performance. This renders in half a second at best, right? So each individual KPI otherwise has to, of course, render individually, and the performance gets drastically decreased with the number of cards that you add. But this is just one visual, so it's bonkers, yeah.
Wow. What's not
okay? So yeah, exactly. So I think that the cards really conclude this actionable reporting toolkit that is available here. But yes, most of all these elements combined should make your reports more understandable and actionable. Yeah, thank you for having me. And if you need any of the resources, these are available. As I said, our next free webinar will be on March the 3rd, where we go into detail of consolidating the data for the KPI cards and the different approaches on how to do this. But yes, thank you.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, we can jump into it.
One of the things I was playing around with today a little bit was just trying to remember what you can do with the free visuals, and I didn't really get to the cards, but even just the Zebra BI table is more space efficient than the native bar chart, and it has that really cool intelligent number formatting where, you know, this is one of the things I like about Zebra is you've thought about the data viz stuff. So for instance, with the Power BI table, you can say, hey, auto guess at the number formatting, and it might guess that the number formatting is going to be something point something million, but it shows that for everything. So it might show 0.001 million, whereas the Zebra BI table, I noticed, it automatically jumps from MKB to nothing. So even if you were to just use the free version of Zebra BI tables, you end up with a better looking thing.
Yeah, and just I had a quick comparison. If you wish to see the let's say this free version of the compared to the let's say licensed one. Yes, you can do a lot with the free version as well. So it's slightly limited as how many action elements you can pack into it, but other than that, it can drastically improve the let's say the reports as well. So here you can see the cards are basically the same. It just has this, let's say, time marker, but this will also disappear with the new version. As you can see, it's already waiting for certification. This new icon reminds you of that with the latest update. But yes, this is the free version of the tables. The only limitation here is that you can use just one comparison measure at a time. So if you added another one, it will of course lock with the mark, but otherwise this is pretty much it. You might not be able to rename the columns, but there's a lot of, let's say, cases that you can use this with the free version as well as the charts here. So yeah.
Fernando asks, how do you manage multi-currency format? Let's say we have calculation groups and tabular editor manage currency format. Can the charts use those? I use calculation groups all the time with Zebra BI, but I'm not sure about the format.
To be honest, we've received a lot of questions regarding the currency signs, and we are considering implementing those in the visuals. But according to IBCS standards, you should really try to reduce the redundant information. So repeating the currency across the entire column is something that is not best practice. And what you can do here is you can simply state the currency in the title, right? Same can be said in the row level. So if you have such requests, it is best to show it in the title, keep the information density there, but not clutter it with unnecessary information repeating.
Joe asks, are they certified? The answer is absolutely yes. So your admin just needs to have the privilege. Your global admin, Power BI admin, just needs to have the privilege to add these to the approved organizational visuals, and anyone can use them.
Yeah, I mean, because they're Power BI certified by default, apart from just this particular version of the cards, but in a few days right now, we've added the certified version of the cards should be coming to App Store, so you should be able to use all the entire stack without problem.
Excellent. Would you mind? I just wanted to show you one thing. I'm just going to turn my light down here. So I've been using Zebra BI on one of my projects, and have I shared the right screen? Or you've got a dashboard. You've got a Zebra BI NZ US Trade Council. Hopefully you're looking at. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
We do see that, Jeffrey.
Oh, excellent. And I did this before cards were available, and so I've got some Zebra BI visuals here with the hills and valley, which is what I like about it. And I just had these kind of pretty awful blocks because my client just said, hey, I just want to see some headline figures from these things, but it looks kind of pretty awful, and I kind of put them in there just because of the way I wanted to line this up. But the issue I had is that when I switched over to using trying Zebra BI charts up, which I'm just going to move down to the screen here, it actually added so much information in here that it kind of makes these other ones redundant. This is what I was saying about before. So in a way, by changing the old blocks for the cards, now I need to work out, okay, what the hell am I gonna, like, do I still need all these other things here? And if I take them out, what's going to fill the space? So it's a bit of a dilemma, because I've got to go back and kind of revisit the client work. But I mean, you know, what a problem to have. And the other thing I just wanted to pull out, the other thing that my client absolutely loves is the default others category for small multiples. So here we're looking at some trade data, but he just loves the fact that he can continually expand this to go, okay, well, I'm interested in Indonesia, Malaysia, maybe I want the top 20, and it just tiles automatically. So he absolutely loves that. Another thing he loves is the ability to do the pop-up tooltips. Like here we're looking at trade with China, but if I hover over China, then he can see via another Zebra BI visual, okay, what makes up that trade. He absolutely loves these visuals, and what he loves the most about them in this particular case is the price, because everything he does is published to web, and with your licensing, he just needs to buy a bundle of 5 licenses, and there's only one developer, me, but the bundles come in a minimum of 5 licenses. And because everything is published to web, it's the only place things are shared, then for an organization like his, where it's publicly available data, it is just the sweet spot in terms of pricing. So just wanted to pass that feedback through. Not everybody's going to be in the same boat, because a bigger organization will have to pay for more licenses. But for NPOs wanting to stand up something that's pretty amazing looking, I don't think you can do better. So well done.
Yeah, it's a joint effort. If we can make use of it and make reporting better, then our job is done. So.
I mean, look, I'm a Zebra. I don't work for Zebra. Even though I've got the T-shirt, I don't take any kickbacks from you guys. But I'm a fanboy because just for simple stuff like to be able to do a hills and valley chart, or you guys did small multiples before they were available natively, and even now that they're available natively, it's just that ability to have them automatically tiled on the page rather than having to tell Power BI, I want a 3x2 grid, you know, and then maybe you select another category and suddenly there's an extra thing that doesn't fit, whereas with Zebra, if it can fit it in, it'll fit it. So I make the point when I'm talking to clients outside of my day job, I go, yes, there are an additional expense, but they're a hell of a lot cheaper in the long run than me trying to do something that 1/10 as good on my hourly rate. It's a team of Power BI developers in a box.
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't have said it better. So yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions at this stage? I learned some new things today that I hadn't seen before, which was I really like, as well as the cards, which look amazing. And again, I still need to get to grips with them. I really love that hover over button that pops you to another page. So this is the thing I like about the Zebra webinars is while you guys are showing off the product, I always learn something about the core product of Power BI that they sit within. So I'm really pleased to have seen that.
Yeah, and this is the main idea. It's not to compete with Power BI or something like that. Power BI is a really excellent platform, but it's just supercharging it and making it easy and approachable for everyone, right?
Yeah. One of the things I know that Andre's taken great lengths with this is to make it so that you pay as low a click tax as possible when you do stuff. So I know he used to take pride in doing presentations where he would only go into the settings a handful of times to do things. Everything else was done from the UI. I mean, even just the one-click sorting in the Zebra BI tables is, I think, is really good. So, yep, love the product. Recommend everybody try it out. How you find it on App Source is you just search for Zebra, and you'll see all three come up. If you have any questions about them, maybe if you're a member of the meetup, maybe reach out to me because I'm always happy to share my love. I bugged Andre quite a bit in the early days for how to use things, but that's not scalable. But there's quite a good community of Zebra BI, and you guys have got a really good knowledge base too, right?
Yes. I can also paste links in the chat to the knowledge base. We also have templates that you can just simply populate with your data, and you have it all there. So this is all there. All the webinars are freely available, so you can just sign up for any of the previous ones, especially, let's say, the write back commentary people find useful because it has, going from scratch to creating that Power App to enable the write back for the comments and so on. But yes, feel free to use the entire Zebra BI resources. This is the idea to help the community grow and improve the reporting. Yeah,
I know there's quite a few companies in New Zealand that use them, so it's probably also good if you're a Kiwi and you want to find out a little bit more about other people's experiences. There's other people out there than me. I'll actually drop a link in the chat to this dashboard that I did because it's publicly available. So if you want to have a look at what a pleb like me did in the wild, have a look, and I'm just scratching the surface. And in fact, Andre always tells me off for my dashboard because I've used the color that he hates, and I leave it in there purely just to irk him from time to time.
Well, thank you very much, Mark, for taking time out of your morning. We really appreciate you dialing in and showing us just such an amazingly sophisticated and powerful tool. And I'm sure you even only just scratched the surface as well. So And also thanks for everyone for jumping on. Great to see so many familiar names. Great to see so many new names as well. I